Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. This week we're going to discuss the book of Job, a part of the Bible that has a lot of key psychological insights, as indicated by the fact that this book is talked about a lot. But I think as much as it is discussed, nobody really touches on these key psychological insights, these nuggets of wisdom that we're going to get to this week, mainly because, most people who talk about it come from a Judeo-Christian perspective, one of the mind-body dichotomy, and it makes it more difficult when you come at it from that perspective. We have to turn away from evil to be good. Right? Good is the absence of evil, as opposed to we have to delve into the evil and understand it for what it is to be good, to create the psychological foundation in our lives from which it's easier to do good. So we're going to come at this from an atheist perspective, and I think we're going to get more psychological insight out of it because of that, with the help of Jung. We're definitely going to use Jung for help here. First things first, animusempire.com/schedule. Hey, what Job goes through in this book, what we're going to discuss is what we all need to go through to some extent. Now, maybe you can listen to this podcast, read my ebook, go on YouTube, hear what I have to say, and put the pieces together for yourself. That's great. I wish you the best. Or maybe you need some guidance. animusempire.com/schedule. We'll see how I can help. And if I can help you, I will gladly point you in the right direction. So either way, to go in a better direction in your life is very simple. All you got to do, go to animusempire.com/schedule, free consultation. We'll figure out what's going on with you, and I will offer whatever guidance I can. Overview, part 1, we're going to talk about the context of the book of Job. Part 2, synopsis of it. Part 3, Jung's answer to Job. Like I said, a lot of my wisdom in this episode is really going to be Jung's wisdom simplified. Part 4, my answer to Job. Yeah, we're going to take what Jung says, maybe simplify it like I've done with my unified theory of psychology, to the extent that I have unified psychology. Really what I do is I just look at what Jung said and said, we don't have to make this as complicated, do we? Let's break it down into simpler moving parts. That'll be my answer to Job. And then part 5, examples of how we all act like Job, and why, you may be, quote, doing the right things in your life, but you're really not getting what you want. What could be the result of that? Or what could be the cause of that? Yeah. And how do we get a better result? Probably doesn't come from going after a certain result, as opposed to looking at our maybe intention behind what we're doing. All right, part 1, context of the book of Job. It's really about change. There's a parable about the nature of change and the nature of reality. Look, you guys know I'm not a Christian. It doesn't matter. Doesn't mean there aren't psychological nuggets in this. If you are a Christian or a Jew, it doesn't matter. Atheist, agnostic, nihilist. Well, if you're a nihilist, we probably can't help you out. You're on your own thing. Maybe we have other podcasts here to help you with that. But as long as you understand that there are some values that we need to work towards, whether those values are spiritual or material in nature, again, maybe that comes back to the mind-body dichotomy, that false dichotomy, and we're going to tease apart, really what this is going on here and apply it to your life. I want to make this as useful, as powerful, as abstract, as metaphysical, yet as useful as possible. Another point about this book I think is interesting. It's completely anomalous, completely outside a biblical setting. It's not like Job is King David's brother's sister's former roommate. It's not a part of the biblical context at all. To the extent that it is part of the biblical context is, each story in the Old Testament is an iteration, a precursor to the story of Jesus. Here, these guys are going through a similar story, messing up in different ways, doing different things. But it's not. But this doesn't take place in Israel. Job isn't an Israelite. We know that it was written between maybe 600 and 300 BC. But, it's not like a part of the story. The language is way better. Job is also interesting. We're going to get to this, but Job is also interesting because he doesn't do anything wrong. On the surface, he doesn't do anything wrong. I mentioned King David. What does King David do? Yeah, he kills one of his generals so he can sleep with his wife. Okay, David, you can't do that. You messed up. But Job isn't like that. He doesn't really do anything wrong on the surface, or maybe he does. Jung's point and his answer to Job was not apparent to me when I first read it. I didn't know what he was talking about, but as I began to understand what he was getting at, it really changed the way that I view religion. Again, I'm an atheist, but I really started to see, there can be like huge psychological truths in religion. Not every religious story, let's be honest, but some are better than other, and I think the Book of Job is the best of them. I got to be honest, I don't want to sound too crazy here, but there's really no easy way to land this plane. I probably read Book of Job 15 times at least. Sound like Mike Tyson, who read The Hobbit 15 times when he was in prison. Yeah, you can't read a book 15 times without sounding crazy. And it's probably more than 15 times, to be honest. Well, it's on my Kindle, and it helps me fall asleep. I can just read it, and it just like rocks me to sleep. So, I may not be a biblical scholar. I'm probably not a scholar of Job either. But I maybe have learned some things, paid attention to some things that are important to me, and maybe, sharing what I've learned about this story through my lens will help shed some insights into the story, and as a result, insights into your own psychology and what you need to do, what we all need to do if we do want to change. And also what the story deals with, change, reality. So really what this is how to soften up the tail of the Ouroboros. Right? What is the Ouroboros? What does it represent? We need to digest ourselves. We need to first eat a part of ourselves to get the nutrition from it. Well, that's difficult. We want the nutrition before we digest the part. That would be easier. If we got the confidence of confronting our anxiety before we confront our anxiety, then use that confidence to confront our anxiety. Well, it doesn't really work that way. But what do we need to do to make the change easier? Not easier, but maybe more natural, more consistent, is we need to soften up the Ouroboros tail. Insights in the Book of Job, I think, teach us how to do this. How do we relate with reality in a better way? What does that come down to? That's what the Book of Job entails. Get it? Sorry about that. Okay, part 2, a synopsis of Job. And if you ever get lost in this, just remember, it's just like Hurricane Eddie. It's Simpsons episode from season 8. Hurricane hits Springfield. Only Ned's house is destroyed. The pious, God-fearing man. Only his house is destroyed. Ask God what he does wrong. I think I remember in that scene when Ned's in the church asking God, like, what are you doing? I even do the stuff that contradicts the other stuff. I even eat kosher to stay on the safe. He goes through a bunch of funny things. And even Ned references Job in that scene. And so the Springfieldians get together, rebuild his house in a really shoddy way. We have Police Chief Wiggum telling Ned why the toilet's in the kitchen. Man, I love that scene. It's just totally acceptable to Wiggum to just leave the toilet in the kitchen because, carrying up the stairs is pretty difficult. But what happens? The shoddy rebuild exposes unconscious issues, and Ned faces those issues. Ned comes back, and everybody loves him. So, if you ever get lost, that's what I do whenever I'm reading the Book of Job, and I get lost. Like, what part are we at? Oh yeah, we're at the part where Ned's talking to Wiggum. Okay, now it's making more sense. All right, so chapters 1 through 2 is the bet. Now, is it really a bet? People say it's a bet. I'm not really sure it's a bet, but Satan, and is it even Satan? It's not really clear, at least in my new revised standard version. Satan says, look, this guy Job, he is only good. He only does good things because you, God, give him what he wants. I bet if you took away all the good things that you give him, all the good material possessions, even, spiritual possessions, his wife and family. Oh no, his wife doesn't die. But his family dies, takes all his wealth. If you took away all these things, then Job wouldn't be good anymore. Now, is it really a bet? I don't know. God says, okay, go for it. I give Job over to you, Satan. We'll just call him Satan. Doesn't matter. And the book is supposed to answer this question. Why would God do that? Why would God hand over this guy who does exactly what God wants to Satan, the guy who does good things? Job doesn't do anything wrong, right? Unlike King David. Or in other words, right, why would God allow bad things to happen to good people? And then Job's friends, this is chapters 3 through 28. This is the main part of the book, and it mostly is a debate. And the debate takes the form of, Job's friends coming to him and saying, look, God is just. We know that. That is the premise we are working off here. So if you're suffering, Job, you must have done something wrong. And Job continues to maintain his innocence. Like, no, I really didn't do anything wrong. This is not my fault. This is not my responsibility. So either Job is just or God is just. That's the main conflict in these debates that really go on way too long. If I was going to, I know I said the prose is really good in Book of Job. Because, most of the Bible isn't written that well. And if I was going to criticize the prose or criticize the Book of Job on a technical level, this does not need to be, 25 chapters? Yeah. This debate section does not need to be 25 chapters. Oh boy. But, that's the fundamental conflict. Either Job is just or God is just. So, what's the issue? But somebody else comes. Not necessarily Job's friend, Elihu, from chapters 28 to 37. And we have Ted Knight playing Elihu. That's great trivia. That's great Caddyshack trivia. What is Judge Smale's first name in Caddyshack? It is Elihu. Elihu comes and has a different perspective. And I think, geez, as much as I've read this freaking book, you think I'd have more of the details down pat. And I think Elihu's, I know he's not Job's friend. And he's young. I think he's like an adolescent. And Elihu has a different perspective. He says, maybe God is building your character, in a sense. Suffering, Job, the suffering you're going through now is a great opportunity for growth. And it's even a greater opportunity because maybe you didn't do anything wrong. I believe you. He doesn't know why Job is suffering. He's not trying to explain it. He's not trying to break it down to cause and effect. But there must be something in the suffering that Job can use for, in a sense, an insurance policy against, future, anything in the future that may happen to go wrong. You need to build up your character now. So maybe there's something coming on the horizon. God sees something on the horizon and he knows you're not going to be ready for that. So he's making you suffer now to build up your character, really as an insurance policy against future catastrophe. You often hear people talk about this when they say something like, oh, yeah, good thing I didn't make any money when I was, so let's say some guy's 35 and has a lot of money. He'll say something, oh, good thing I didn't make any money when I was 25 because I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't psychologically ready for it. Good thing my first company went bankrupt because if it did become successful, I would have just not have the psychological wherewithal to handle it properly. And then chapters 38 to 41, God arrives. God arrives as Job calls out to him specifically. So God does answer Job, you could say. I mean, these two things are associated in the plot, but God does not speak to Job. He doesn't answer Job's question specifically of why did you make this bad thing happen to me? He doesn't answer him. And he's not even talking to Job. Really, his point seems to be he's exposing the faultiness of the question. It doesn't matter why bad things happen to good people is his point. It's just like, and sorry, I guess I'm not talking about the main point. So when God shows up, he's not even talking about what Job's going through. All he's doing is just taking him around, explaining, showing him different parts of the universe, different parts of nature. He describes digestion and how animals eat and migration patterns and how the cosmos move. And I think he references the tides. And he says, in a sense, look, there's so much going on here. I mean, that you don't understand. Like, you don't understand how a deer digests its food, right? Job's like, well, no, I don't. Okay, so if you don't understand that, how could you possibly understand what's happening to you? And then as a final point, God shows him Behemoth and Leviathan, these two monsters, mythological beings that represent chaos, but I would argue not represented in a negative light. Look at how awesome these creatures are. Look at how powerful these creatures are. Look at how you just do not have control over this. What makes you think you can have control? Just because you did good things, you're going to get nice things as a reward. And then chapter 42, Job repents. Job says, sorry, I didn't know. I didn't have perspective. I was just looking at my life. I wasn't looking at the entire workings of the universe and how it really works, which I still don't know. But now I'm more, in tune with the fact that I don't know. Sorry for questioning you, God. And then God gives Job all his stuff back. Times 2. He gets twice everything back. I think he has the same wife, but new children, twice as much livestock, which is money in the Old Testament. And that's the story. But I think it's important to note that Job doesn't get the stuff back because he repents. I mean, no way is there that association. Oh, okay, Job, you did the right thing by repenting, now you get your stuff back. That wasn't the point. But he does get the stuff back. So part 3, what is Jung's answer to Job? Why did Job suffer? What was the point of Job's suffering? Well, short answer is Jung posits a quaternity. There is an evil feminine side of God as represented in 1950 when Pope Pius XII declares the Assumption of Mary, essentially saying Mary is part of the Trinity, making it a quaternity, which Job calls the most important event in the Catholic Church or in all of Christianity since the Reformation. So look, we think of God as this benevolent force, but maybe it never was. Maybe it always had this dark side. And what does Jung really mean by this, though? It took me a while to realize this. But if you go to paragraph 751, like I said, this is the punchline of the book. This and the surrounding paragraphs. But this is part of paragraph 751. Jung says, God is an obvious psychic and non-physical fact, i.e. a fact that can be established psychically but not physically. Religion falls into 2 categories, which must be sharply distinguished from one another. The first category, the psychology of the religious persona, and 2, the psychology of religion proper, i.e. of religious contents. What is he saying here? I mean, this is a key insight that, I've talked about a lot, so maybe it doesn't seem like a big deal to you, but I guess in the entire history of not just Christianity, but religion, to come out and say God is an obvious psychic fact, but not a physical fact, doesn't make him any less important, though, because he's a psychic fact. So what are we talking about when you're saying that God has a fourth side? It's represented by the evil feminine. What are you saying? Are you talking about a physical God? No, you're talking about a psychic God. You're talking about a part of man that man needs to wrestle with. This is 752. It does not matter at all that a physically impossible fact is asserted, because all religious assertions are physical impossibilities. If they were not so, they would, as I said before, necessarily be treated in the textbooks as natural science. But religious statements, without exception, have to do with the reality of the psyche and not with the reality of the physical world. Again, what are we saying about God? It's not that he's immoral. It's not that God did something wrong. It's amoral, as represented by the Assumption of Mary in the quaternity. There's this amoral aspect to God. Essentially what Jung is saying. Let me interpret this and maybe add some of my own opinion. God is reality. God is a part of you psychically, and it's how you relate with reality. That is the symbolism of God. Now, it makes it more psychically real when we talk about God as physically real. Maybe that animates us to some degree. But God in itself is not physically real. And it actually becomes more powerful because now we represent God as a part of us. And so what the book of Job is an individual wrestling with his own demons. Much like Hurricane Eddie, right? If I'm losing here. Ned had to wrestle with his demons to get everybody to like him, to really genuinely like Ned for who he is. He had to be put in a situation that exposed something that he didn't want to face, his own anger. He had to get pissed at his beatnik parents. Then after that, everybody liked him way more than they liked him before. And really what we're talking about here is individuation. This is from paragraph 746. Regarding individuation, something empirically demonstrable comes to our aid from the depths of our unconscious nature, and it is the task of the conscious mind to understand these hints. If this does not happen, the process of individuation will nevertheless continue. The only difference is we become its victim and are now dragged along by fate towards that inescapable goal that we may have reached walking upright. If only we had taken the trouble and been patient enough to understand in time the meaning of the noumena that cross our path. So why did Job suffer, according to Jung? What's he saying here? Right there. Job suffered because he, quote, wasn't paying attention. That's it. Job was in touch with a part of himself that he was not paying attention to. And he kept blaming something else. He kept blaming something outside of him as representing God as a physical being. But that wasn't it. God is a psychological being. There is this assumption of the merry, evil, feminine part of the quaternity that Job did not recognize in himself. That's why he suffered. He was not whole. Oh, yeah, I guess there's more. This is paragraph 747. Well, this isn't a quotation. But yeah, I remember trying to come up with a quotation. It's like, I'm not going to quote this directly. I'll just sum it up. So in 747, Jung says, it's man's responsibility to take care of the evil that God places in him. God wants to be man. I mean, this is very much it's like this is completely outside the confines of the Judeo-Christian worldview. This is ancient Greek. This is how the Greeks saw the gods. The gods wish they were us. The gods wish they were mortal, because then life is more fun. Life is more energetic. Go watch A Nice Place to Visit, that Twilight Zone episode. I could just do a breakdown of that. God is bored. God wants to become man, but of course God isn't this physical being. If we're going to really tease out the psychological lessons from this, God is a projection. It is a projection of us. Projection of us out as nature. And I think it's very telling when God does come down to Job. He doesn't, there's no lesson. He's not saying, oh, you should do this or you should do that or don't you see this. It's, I'm just going to describe several natural processes that you have no idea what's at the root of them. It's just like nature, just in Job's face. Like when you ever go walking in the woods and you just get in that trance-like state and you think, man, there's just like so much going on. There's so much going on here I don't understand. That's what happens in chapter 40 of Book of Job. And then, yeah, I guess I already mentioned this, but the paragraph 753 to 754, you're just talking about Pope Pius XII's papal statement on the assumption of the Virgin Mary in heaven, which puts women on an equal footing as man. A pretty remarkable statement at the time. I don't know if it's the most important event in Christianity since the Reformation, but who does? Essentially is saying, look, there's this good conscious part, but there's also this, quote, evil unconscious part. The Catholic Church recognizing this is part of us too. Okay, part 4. This is my answer to Job. Pretty much agree with everything that Jung says. Again, just a point of clarification here. Like my unified view of psychology. Hey, here's my unified view of psychology. Oh, really? How did you think of it? Well, I read Jung for about 12 years and then ate a bunch of bacon and coffee. And then I got this. That's pretty much it. So yeah, God as psychic reality. God as nature. As indicated in his justification to Job. As indicated by the fact that he does not address Job directly. The point of sitting with the suffering. Job was suffering because he was trying to find answers, because he was trying to explain. Without becoming what? Without becoming emotionally comfortable with the situation. Without seeing this part of himself and sitting and being comfortable with it and recognizing that it is a part of himself. The analogy I always use, regulation is like lifting a 300-pound barbell. He had the 300-pound barbell on his back, and in a sense, he just stopped trying to struggle with it and accepted it. Why is lifting a 300-pound barbell comfortable for me? Because I have sweet quads. right? And I didn't get there. I didn't get sweet quads by struggling with the weight. You accept it. You incorporate it. Job, in a sense, like Ned Flanders in Hurricane Ned, he confronted the thing that he feared the most. He had unconfronted, unmanaged fear. That's why he had everything taken away from him. I think this is a key point that I think I may have gotten somewhere, but I really don't know from who. It's not from Jung. But I think a crucial part of this book that at least goes unspoken is in chapter 1. It says, quote, Job is a man who fears God and turns away from evil. That is how Job is described. But in chapter 42, the main part that everybody discusses is verse 5, when Job repents. But what does Job do before he repents that I think psychologically is even more important? Job says, I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. That's the key. Job no longer fears God. Job acted in the way that he was supposed to act because he was afraid of what would happen. Now Job, he's going to do all the same things that he did after meeting God. It's going to be all the same things, the same actions. Again, it's not like King David. Job didn't do anything bad. But he's not going to do them because he's afraid of God. He's not going to do them because he's afraid of what might happen. He's going to do them because, in a sense, he sees God. He just knows it's the right thing to do because he wants to do it. Huge difference. What does my brother say? It's not what you do, it's how you do it. Then Leviathan and Behemoth, again, this is my original point. This is the answer to Job. I mean, the common Judeo-Christian interpretation of this is there is no real definite answer to Job. God comes down, explains parts of nature that Job doesn't understand, says and implies, really, if you can't understand this, then how can you understand your own life? But after this, he comes over the top with Leviathan and Behemoth, these huge physical forces, of course, representing psychological forces. These are the answers. I mean, the common interpretation is, oh, the answer to Job must be something good. This is demonstrated well in Woody Allen's answer to Job in Manhattan. His answer to Job was his girlfriend's face. Now, I would show a still from that movie, but I don't want to get caught, go to jail, having pedophilia on my computer. All right. Am I right? You know what's so strange about that is he could have made his girlfriend 23. If you wanted the point that she was young and had opportunities and you were like this old guy, I understand. Okay, so part of the plot is Woody Allen, you need a girlfriend who's younger than you. Significantly younger. You could have made her 23. It would not have. She could have been in college. Why did she have to be 17 and in high school? What was he, 42 or 46? It still would have been, but at least it would have been fine. Now it's just strange. Especially everything that we know about Woody Allen. Well, not that we really know for sure, but boy, there are some interesting. Anyways, this isn't about that. But yeah, Woody Allen says, like, why did Job suffer? Oh, because there's the face of my girlfriend here. This is a good answer to his suffering. This is a great reason for suffering. But I think God's point is, no, the reason for the suffering is to look at the suffering. Like, I'm showing you all these awesome things about the universe, and on top of that, I'm going to come on top, with a description of Leviathan and Behemoth, these huge forces who just make everybody quake in their presence. You have no power over whatsoever. But they're not bad because of that. I am in no way describing them in any sort of negative light. It's awesome. This chaos is awesome. What's the point of my suffering? Oh, because something good will come out of it. No, the point of the suffering is to look at your anger and anxiety for what it is. As bad as you think the suffering is, as bad as you think losing things around you, the real suffering is when you got to look at your unconscious for what's actually going on. And all these things that you're blaming on other people, oh crap, these are my own unprocessed issues. Oh my God, I've been blaming my parents the past 15, 20 years. Now I'm looking at myself, my own Leviathan and Behemoth, and I can't look away. It is my issue that I project out onto them. The answer to Job is not a beautiful woman's face, Mariel Hemingway's face. It is the suffering itself. The suffering aggrandized as Leviathan and Behemoth. So Elihu was right. We all know this great scene in Caddyshack. You'll get nothing and like it. Another good Caddyshack trivia. What is Judge Smale's grandson's name? Yes, Spaulding. I want a hot dog. I want French fries. I want a Coke. You'll get nothing and like it. That's the point. Is Caddyshack not telling you exactly the point, the message that has been lost to all the great thinkers of the age? The thinkers of the ages, they are telling you the message that is lost. Yeah, you'll get nothing and like it. I mean, it's not a coincidence that he was named Elihu, right? I mean, it can't be a coincidence. I mean, they're Caddyshack's just making fun of wasps. They wouldn't give him a Jewish name, Elihu, if he was supposed to represent, like, you know, this dark side of wasp culture. Harold Ramis thought, right? It was Harold Ramis. He thought that the Book of Job was really important. He was just going to do a remake, but he's like, I'm just going to do Caddyshack instead. All right. Part 5. What are examples of us acting like Job in present day? Well, this Job comes up with a covert contract. Right? You got a question a few weeks ago about this, and not criticizing that listener. We all do this to some degree, but we create these covert contracts. I'm going to be clean, so my roommate will be clean too. I'm going to be nice to my roommate in this way, and I expect him to be nice to me in other ways. I'm not going to talk to him about it, but I'm going to clean up the kitchen, and if he doesn't clean up the kitchen in the future, I'm going to be upset at him. But you're doing the right thing. You're cleaning it up, but the intention is all off. What are you doing, right? You're just not in touch with God, with psychic God, and physical God, or philosophical God, which is, of course, reality. What's the Job thing to do here, right? What's the book 40 or chapter 40 to 42 thing? Talk to your friend. That's the thing you're avoiding. You're not being a good person. I mean, you're doing good things, but you're not in touch with God. You're out of touch with reality. You're out of touch with your own issues. That's Job. Doing the right thing, but out of touch. See this all the time. You want a good family. Let's say you come from a bad abusive family and you keep saying, well, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to be like my mom and my dad. I'm going to raise my kids different. With that, you want to do that, but without clearing up issues with your parents. Very similar to Ned Flanders. He wasn't a complete person because he had this anger issue with his mom and dad. And when he got in touch with that, then he became the kind of person who everybody loves. I mean, really loves, not just likes. Not just, oh yeah, Ned, he's a nice guy. But he became a whole and complete person in that episode. Yeah, I'm never going to be like my parents. That is a great way to ensure you're going to be exactly like your parents. And you want to do the right things. I mean, this person doesn't want to be like his parents. Oh, I'm going to read all these books. I'm going to learn exactly how to raise kids. I'm going to analyze specifically what my parents did wrong. But unless you clear up those issues with your parents, talk through them, process the resentment, maybe even talk with your parents about it. Bring up resentment with my parents. I know we all see that as like a level 9 on the discomfort scale. Really, that's a 2. If you think it's a 9, your emotions are out of whack. It's really a 2. That is the beginning point of a better relationship with your parents. Getting in touch with your unconscious issues. And through doing that, you become more in touch with reality. Get more in touch with psychological God. You become more in touch with the physical God. Huge difference. And it doesn't come down to what one person does or doesn't do. Another example, how do you meet girls? right? Do you go meet girls so you can be liked? Or do you do it to like yourself? If you go talk to a girl, are you doing it so she'll like you, or are you doing it so you will like yourself? Is the goal to get her number, or is the goal to become a more whole, complete man? Because unless you can express this part of yourself in a healthy way, there's no way you're ever going to be a whole and complete man. What's the point? Is the work inner or is it outer? Now, two different guys could be doing the same thing, but with a completely different intention. Same thing with online dating. I mean, this goes for meeting guys too if you're a girl. Doesn't matter. But yeah, same thing with online dating. Do you use it as a crutch? I think I tweeted today. Do you use it as a crutch or a cast? In the past I kept saying, online dating, it's a crutch. That's not the right analogy. A crutch is, you're using it to hobble. But a cast is, I have some broken bones and I need to get them healed. This is an easier way to meet women, or a less intense way psychologically to meet women. So if you do use online dating, how do you do it? Is it to improve yourself, or is it to, just narcissistically feed off the sexuality of others? I think online dating is great. All depends on how you use it. And so, conclusion. The religious interpretation of the book of Job is good works don't matter without faith in God, and the psychological interpretation, my own interpretation, just re-saying what Jung says, but it's good works don't matter if you're out of touch with reality. And I'll leave it there. Thank you guys. Animus at animusempire.com. If you have any questions for the podcast or any questions about this podcast, and again, animusempire.com/schedule. It's about being in touch with reality. Your psychic reality, your unconscious, and your philosophical reality, the actual physical reality. And you may need help. You may need help getting in contact with these things. And I've created a specific structure, a specific way of looking at your anxiety and anger, your behemoth and your leviathan, a specific way of looking at this and how we deal with this and accept these things into our life to become, again, ever more in touch with reality. All right, guys, thank you again. And as always, I wish you all the joy and pain that comes from being in touch with reality.